and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. Days go by. It's the bigger love of the family.
Hey, you're muted, Nathan.
Hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now?
You're
Great.
good.
There it is. One of those days, comes with this digital lifestyle. Sometimes everything works perfectly, but most times it does not. And today is one of those days. So I may have to step away. There she is. There's TNT. She just joined us. We got Phil Heimlich with us as well, but he's in the car. Hey, Phil, can you even hear us? He can't even hear us. So he's in the car right now. If you know what that is, when you're in the car, you're trying to live stream. It might work. It may not work. Who knows where Phil might be in the entire country? We have no idea, but he's always welcome. We'll try to get him in. Got a regular crew today and a new face, Todd Zinser. How you doing, Todd?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Give me 1 second so I can get everybody's audio succinct and looking good. Todd is a former inspector general, and I want to hear all about that job. That sounds like a cool job. And he is also the host of something called Citizen Watchdog, which is really cool. He watchdogs the city and gets to the bottom of corruption and the issues that need to be talked about. Really cool stuff. But like I said, Todd, inspector general, tell us what is an inspector general? What do you do? What is that job?
It's funny, Nathan, when I retired, I figured everybody would know what an inspector general does because everybody in Washington, D.C. knows. But when I got into the real world, I came to understand that nobody really knows what the inspector general position's all about. But it's based on a law passed back in 1978 in the wake of Watergate. And they've placed inspectors with both investigative and audit capacity inside each cabinet department. And it's really a very powerful position. Our access to records is unfettered. We can't be told what to do or what not to do in terms of investigations and audits. The only way we can be removed from our position is by the president. And so that gives you a lot of independence. And I worked in two different cabinet offices in the Inspector General's office. I worked at the Transportation IG's office for 16 years. And then I was appointed to the position of Inspector General at the Commerce Department and did that for 7.5 years. And you do all kinds of things. There's probably, 10 different types of audits that you do. And we did criminal investigations, civil investigations, mostly fraud against the government. We did do a lot of misconduct investigations involving senior officials and things like that. All our reports are required to publish all of our reports publicly on our website. All of our investigations, not all of our investigations, the criminal cases were usually communicated by the Department of Justice, but all of our audits were on the website, and it was really kind of a good government type position. And I did enjoy my time in the government.
How long were you an inspector general and under what administrations?
Well, I was actually nominated by President Bush, George W. Bush, in September of 2007. I was confirmed by the Senate later that year. And then when President Obama became president, I worked under him for six and a half years, I believe, before I retired.
All right. And then Citizen Watchdog, tell us about that. Well,
I kind of got triggered by the sale of the railroad. I thought that was a bad idea. To me, it was like selling your house. You've paid off your mortgage, but you're going to sell your house to pay off your credit cards. I thought selling public assets like that, especially one like the railroad, was not a good idea. So that kind of got me involved in checking out what was going on with the city, because I really hadn't paid a lot of attention I had some consulting work I was doing and fixing up my house and things like that. But then after the railroad sale, connected communities came along, and I saw similar problems with connected communities in terms of the way the city brought that issue forward. And I'm not particularly fond of the idea of connected communities either. I thought that they should probably try to do that in a few discrete areas of the city or a few neighborhoods instead of a citywide effort. And so after that, I just kept watching City Hall, and I would post things on Facebook, and somebody finally said, well, maybe you should do a podcast. And so I do that. I did that, started that in February. And then I started a website. It's CincinnatiWatchdog.com. And that contains all of my stuff on it. But the thing I started it for was in order to put original documents online so people could see them. I didn't like talking about issues without providing, the background documentation and things like that. So that's really the purpose of the website, is another location for my podcast. And I put my Inquirer commentaries on there, and media appearances and correspondence I write to the city. I do tend to write letters to the city. Don't really get any letters back from the city, but I still write them and put those on my website.
All right, good stuff. So is Cincinnati Watchdog, is that what it is now, or is it both?
Well, the YouTube channel is Citizen Watchdog with Todd Zinser, but my website is CincinnatiWatchdog.com.
Got it.
Hey, Todd, let me ask you a quick question, because you worked under both Republican and Democratic presidential administrations in your role as Inspector General. As polarized as we are in terms of politics these days, kind of talk about in that role that you did, how the partisanship or the politics doesn't, whether it does or doesn't play into some of the roles like that, right? Like the fact that you worked under Bush and Obama would tend to suggest that the politics weren't as big a part of your day in and day out job as one might think. But these days, it seems like everything is politicized, and every job in the government is politicized. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, well, there's politics that goes on, but the officials in the government at the senior executive level or the political appointee level, especially IGs, were actually prohibited from participating in partisan politics. And I really didn't, at transportation, it was not really political at all. It's, there's no such thing as a Democrat pothole or a Republican highway. It was really kind of nonpartisan, those issues. It was really all about transportation safety. But in commerce was more political, and you got into more ideological issues, and those were difficult. But you're really dealing with individual appointed officials in charge of various agencies. Like in the Commerce Department, we had at least 10, maybe 12 different agencies, some big, some not so big, like the Patent Office, the Census Bureau, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And some of the issues in NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they got political because NOAA is kind of the ground zero for all the climate change issues that the government was dealing with. NOAA, the Energy Department, not so much the EPA, but it's mostly NOAA and Energy that did a lot of the climate change stuff. And that's a very hot issue and very political. And you just have to navigate your way through. And, in the job that I had, 100% of the people are not going to be happy with your work. So it did get to be a little political.
Hi, Todd. Can I ask a question? Do I sound okay? I'm using a different mic. Oh, awesome. Okay. So what are your thoughts about Trump firing at least 17 inspector generals out of, I guess, 26? And if you had not retired, do you believe you would still be among the inspector generals that are still working right now?
That's a great question. I think that I probably would have been let go, even though I was appointed by a Republican. I think what Trump did is he just wanted new leadership in these offices, because what happens, the IGs report to both Congress and to the secretary of their cabinet office. And so a lot of times, and you can go back and look at some of the headlines, but like when the Democrats took over for Trump, or when Trump became president, the Democrats started flooding the IGs, and this was the first term, started flooding the IGs with all these requests for investigation. And that puts the IGs in a tough position, because if a U.S. senator or congressman writes to you and wants you to look into something, you're hard pressed not to look into it, because you report to them. And so I think Trump was trying to reduce those types of investigations, which sometimes are just very political. Though there was one request, for example, they wanted to know why the changing the $20 bill to Harriet Tubman was delayed. They want the IGs to investigate that kind of stuff. And it really wasn't an issue that I thought would be very important. Luckily, I wasn't there to have to respond. But what I would do is, if I got a request, I would go up and I would talk to the member, or I would talk to their staff and find out what they really were looking for. And then I would give them some sense of what I could really do for them that, wasn't everything in the world. So that's really how I handled those. And in terms of firing the inspector generals, I really think that was his prerogative as president to do that. They raised some issues about some amendments to the IG Act that said he had to give X number of days notice and things like that. But from my perspective, I don't know what a 30-day delay in a removal would actually do, except give the Congress more opportunity to complain about it. But his ability to appoint IGs was pretty solid. And I know that a lot of the IGs, there's one very vocal IG who actually used to work for me. I probably would have just said, okay, thanks for the opportunity to do this, and take my retirement. Some of those IGs have been around for 20 and 25 years. And
multiple administrations. So you just didn't find that quite odd for like a single swoop in one day.
Yeah.
Inspector generals to be let go.
The IGs, the main contact with IGs in the federal government, other than their cabinet officers, is the Office of Management and Budget. And I think that Russ Vogt, who heads up the OMB, he's pretty hardcore. And I would not be surprised if he's the one that recommended that Trump sweep those IGs out. And I don't think I don't think it was personal, unless it was personal to a couple. And in order to shield that, he got rid of more than the ones he was really targeting. You just never know. DC can be pretty brutal sometimes.
Reverend, any questions?
I'm learning a lot just listening, to be honest with you.
So with your inspector general, going back on TNT's question, so putting your inspector general hat on, that didn't strike you as odd or suspicious at all when the current administration had the mass firings of inspector generals who are the watchdogs of the administration? No tripwires or alarm bells went off at all in your head?
Well, you have to consider the source. I mean, it was Donald Trump doing it. But the fact is that, like, I had at Commerce, I had 10 executives working for me who would take over. I mean, they do the bulk of the work. And at Commerce or at Transportation was pretty much the same. And so the work is going to go on. And I think a big thing is that him getting rid of those IGs disrupted the relationship between the IGs and the Congress, because some IGs get kind of close to the members that sit on their authorizing and appropriation committees. And so I think Trump was trying to disrupt that relationship.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about the state of the city. Within the last 24 hours, Mayor Aftab, newly reelected Mayor Aftab, delivered the state of the city. I'm not going to lie and said I watched all of it, but I got the gist of it. A lot of room to grow in the city, but the city is moving in the right direction. That's generally the feel that I got from what I watched. If you've got a different viewpoint, I'm sure that's valid. I'd love to hear it. But in general, here's my question. I want to get into where we are as a city. Is city, do we feel like the leadership is improving the daily lives of Cincinnatians, or just improving the presentation of progress? What do you guys think?
I think that there are a lot of quality of life issues in Cincinnati. And one thing I'm particularly concerned about that I want to start looking into is the quality of life, especially for some of our seniors living in publicly assisted housing. I've seen videos that Stefan Pryor's put together. I have information about a senior publicly assisted housing up here in Price Hill that is just abominable. And I don't see what the city is doing for those properties proactively. And I'm not sure that they're really responding to complaints about those properties in a very timely way. And, I think that's terrible. I think people deserve a decent place to live, no matter their station in life. And so I am concerned about that. I'm concerned about the proliferation of group homes in our neighborhoods that are not regulated, and those that are regulated are not vigorously regulated, let me put it that way. And so I do think on the ground, the city has a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I would answer that question that it's subjective. I think if the city has done something that has directly improved your station or your neighborhood, then you feel the answer to that question is yes. If you fall into one of those categories that Todd just kind of outlined, then you're going to feel like the answer to that is no. I mean, one of the signature things that the mayor pointed to was this elimination of medical debt, and I think we talked about this on a previous podcast. That many people talked about, that being erased from their credit or their debt history. I mean, if you're one of the people in the city of Cincinnati that benefited from that, then you're going to absolutely say the city did something recently that has, had a direct improvement on my life. So I think most of these questions that we ask about whether Cincinnati is safe, whether it's gotten better, it depends on your point of view and how directly you're impacted by it. I agree with Todd. I think the city has a long way to go. I mean, even in the conversation about creating, the mayor said in this next term he wants to create 40,000 units of affordable housing. I mean, that's still not nearly enough. I mean, I think when you sort of talk about what the housing unit shortages are, I think and don't hold me to this, but I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 to maybe 200,000 units subpar. 40,000 is not insignificant, but it doesn't keep pace with the need, the level of growth that Cincinnati might be experiencing, and the fact that rents continue to rise while wages remain stagnant in the city. And so I think, those are issues, some of which, city council doesn't have any control over. Some things they do. But, affordability is the biggest question I think, of these current times is, can people, to Todd's point, everybody deserves a decent place to live and a decent place to stay. And right now, I think that's probably the biggest challenge that Cincinnati faces. And I don't think that enough has been done. And I don't know that what they have on tap is going to be significant enough to make as much of a difference as needed.
Just to kind of slightly piggyback off of what Kevin was saying, and off of The other gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Mr.
Todd.
Zinser. Mr. Todd Zinser, yes. The cost of living is atrocious right now. And I'm gonna just be honest. Most of my peers who are currently in our 30s, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, we are looking to move elsewhere. Most of my siblings don't even live in the city anymore. They've all moved to Kentucky because it's a better, the ratio between what they get paid and what it costs to live in Kentucky right now is way better than anything they can find here. I think that if you are looking for the city to have, you know, um for lack of a better way to put it, if you're looking for this city to still have life in it, if you're looking for this city to still have people who want to be here and who can be here and who can stick around to see some of the things that are being put in place, like grow and thrive, you're just gonna have to adjust to really address the cost of living here. Because if you don't do that, more and more of us are going to move away. We don't have a choice at this point. Our bills are getting higher, but we're not getting raises. You know what I'm saying? We're having children, we're starting families, we're doing things that cost more money. I am yet still a single woman with no children, and I am very, very much so considering moving out of the city of Cincinnati, the city that I grew up in, and I would love to be here and raise a family here, but I can't afford it. There's no way for me to, even if I were to get married and become a two-income household, I still wouldn't be able to afford it. And I think that we have to address those particular issues before we worry about anything else. I think that, I like AvTab, but I don't always agree with some of the things that he says and does, because it does a lot of time come off as performative. They love him in the hood. You can't, they love AvTab in the hood. He pull up in his black on members only jacket, and they mess with him, they dap him up. Hey, that's AvTab, da da da. But that only means so much when it's time to pay some bills. That only means so much when you're looking at crime in the city. Like, yeah, you cool peoples, but what are you doing for me? What are you doing for people who are trying to raise a family and conduct business and buy a home? I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. I'm sick of, like, I've gotten past the point, or maybe I've just matured past the point of being more concerned about how cool my mayor is. I don't give a damn that you cool no more. I don't. What are you doing to improve the cost of living in the city that I live in? What are you doing to offer more opportunities to be in my peers, to become homeowners, to become business owners? I just don't see it. And I think that, again, like I said, if it continues the way that things are now, if we don't see some major, opportunities open up, some major improvements, the young people are going to move away and they're not coming back, and that's going to be a problem, because you're going to be left with nothing but our elders who, for a lack of a better way to put that, there won't be here for very long. Or you're going to be left with, out of towners who come in and only conduct business here. They come in from other places, they conduct business, and they go home. What are we prepared to do as a city to make sure that the citizens who live here are going to stay here and put into the economy here? Because it's not, I don't see it being sustainable if it continues to be how it is, to be honest with you.
I'm curious, where are you looking at moving to? Or
So
any
both of
target?
my siblings have moved to Covington, and it's like, and that it's easy because Newport, Covington, it all still feel like Cincinnati because it's right there, but there's a difference. My sisters, they both have very nice homes for the same cost of what I paid. Me and my grandmother paid for a two-bedroom apartment. They have fully furnished homes for that much, paying mortgage payments. And it's like, well, what am I sticking around here for if I can go across the river a couple of minutes and live way better for the same amount of pay that I'm making now? More and more people are doing that. I had a good friend. She started a business and she has a child. She was renting a home. She's about to move to Kentucky, I think, in Covington as well. She's about to buy a house. Her mortgage payments will be cheaper than what she's paying to rent a house right now in Cincinnati. It's stuff like that that is making people want to move away from here. Like, I'll come visit, but I'm not gonna live here because I can't afford to live here. And I think there's an issue. If you can just simply go across the river and afford to live, why can't that same be true over here in Cincinnati? What is that? And can we address that problem before we breathing down Chief DG neck about crime in the city? That's a whole other issue that ain't even her fault, and that it don't matter what you put on her shoulders. She's not gonna necessarily be able to do anything about that because there are other things that come before removing her from her position to handle those issues. I don't care about that. I want to know what you're gonna do about helping me. I want to stay here. I want to live here. I grew up here. but I can't do that if I can't afford to be here.
Yeah. I think the people spoke overwhelmingly that they support this mayor and this administration. They wasn't willing to make any changes. Even the closest Republican, like I said, Liz Keating, was still some 10,000 away in votes, nowhere close. And so I think that speaks volumes and a lot to like what the people feel. They wasn't looking for change. And so with that being said, is there always room for improvement? Of course. People have to remember we're coming off a pandemic. I wasn't, but like 4 or 5 years ago, and a global pandemic, and just being able to bounce back from that. And what Cincinnati is experiencing, other cities are experiencing. This is a nationwide issue with affordable housing, not enough housing, homelessness, you name it. But with everything that we have been through and what this administration has been through in the last couple of years, to still be in a portion of development where we are growing. Look, I drove past University of Cincinnati. It's like it doesn't even look the same now. I almost want to go to college again because it just looks so lively and vibrant. What they're going to do with the Duke Energy Center, and I know those are more like on a corporate level, but the big responsibility of the mayor and council is growth and development of a city. But when you get down, dig into the people, they are partners with many organizations like United Way and different groups. I know they partner with the NAACP and different organizations. And so they're doing their part to work with the people so we can be able to have the resources we need and support we need in those areas. They're not able to save us from all our problems or resolve all our issues. A lot of these things, the cost of living and prices are people's wages not going up. That's been a long-standing issue forever. And that's bigger than what a mayor and city council can do. But as far as like the tariffs and things that's making the cost of building housing and construction and everything's going up because of that. And that's kind of also out of their control. But I remember their first run for mayor and city council, because I do those candidates forums with the NAACP, and we spoke about affordable housing and everything that we said as a community that we wanted. This administration worked hard to do their very best to get the funds, and they were working at a deficit. Like from my understanding, I don't have the exact numbers, but whatever the situation was, it was like all the things that they wanted to do, we were working at, well, I don't even want to put out a wrong number, but at a deficit where it would be hard to accomplish some of those goals. And so the selling of the railroad, I wasn't for that in the beginning too. I thought that was an incredible asset and stuff. But now with the turn of like everything that's going on, and especially where you have on a national level, people threatening to pull federal funding, we almost are like self-sufficient and able to like, you do so, we could still hold our own compared to other cities. I don't know what Dayton is doing. I don't know what Columbus is doing. I don't know what Cleveland is doing, but compared to all the other major cities in this state, I think Cincinnati is doing pretty good.
Is it true? I mean, well, let me back up. All great points. I hear everybody, understand it, and agree with everybody's perspective. I think that TNT says some things that should be understated. Like, I think that when we look at the clean sweep with the Democrats, the easiest way of looking at it is, people just didn't even think about it. They just looked at the slate. That might be true. Or maybe they decided that these people were the best people in their opinion for the job. So they put them back in office to do the job that they've already started. That could be true too. And here's another question. When you see a city claim progress, what data point tells you whether the story is real or not? And are there any data points that we should be focusing on that we never talk about?
So this is my main criticism of the mayor's State of the City speech is, and maybe this is typical of these types of governmental speeches, but I think it would always come across as more effective, and you would make the point more clear if he would do exactly what you just said. Nathan, is provide some data points. Show the people how the progress that you're talking about is actually better. Pull out the crime, pull out the affordable housing statistics, how much you've spent, how much you've created, what are the price points there. Those are the things. What have you done with crime, and how, instead of mentioning, these acronyms or these names of programs that many people have probably never even heard of, show the work, right? That is what convinces people of progress. If I hear the mayor say crime is unacceptable one more time, like, I don't know how who the hell is advised? It frustrates me, because that's one of the things that he's been criticized the most. Don't say that. And he gets up at the State of the City and he says it again. It speaks to the performative nature of him and the fact that he is somewhat tone deaf to sort of what's going on. Don't get up there and say that. Show the numbers, show your work, show the people what you've been doing. And so I think the city is terrible about this. This is one of the reasons why the people don't know, like, the effectiveness of the collaborative and what it does. You're not showing, and I don't think it's just the mayor. I think this council in general is just bad about showing the work, telling people what you're doing, instead of coming out with these broad platitudes. Produce the data. And I don't know, maybe Todd, through his watchdog group, he can speak to some of the data points that you talk about. But I guarantee you, if you went to the average citizen on the street and asked them that question, what data points could they point to show progress? They couldn't tell you. And that's a bad sign, in my opinion.
I don't know, Kevin, we're kind of overwhelmed with everything that's going on nationally and everything. I know that they do plenty of press conferences. They just did one recently. And if you check out their lives, or if you're even looking for it, then you'll see that they do talk about what partnerships they entered in. I think they just did one with Children's Hospital in relative to well, I can't think exactly what it is, because again, it's just so much going on. You can only retain so much information. And so I don't think that's fair to say that they need to speak up more. I think they do. And they social media could even be more, but if you're checking for it, if you're in that algorithm, you're getting it. But I don't think everybody's checking for it. And so it's real easy to say, like, oh, pull out the stats, pull out the facts, and this and that, whatever. I seen the city manager when that first situation with the brawl came out, she had a PowerPoint. She was going through all of that. But again, boring. People wasn't, what I'm saying? They wanted to just like let off some steam and just talk. You know what I mean? So it was just like, you can have all the data points in there and still people won't be satisfied. It's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
But does it depend on the situation? Like, I think, to Kevin's point, you might not want the stats then when everybody is up in arms and emotional, but if the mayor is giving a state of the city, that's the prime time to have the stats available. That's the prime time to put all the numbers on the board and let us see everything, so that we can understand what's being said to us and have physical evidence of the words that are coming out of your mouth, especially after what we just went through this summer. Like, if no other time, now that I won't say that there has now been calm after the storm, but now that things have kind of settled down, we've gotten past this election, because that was what had everybody up in arms and emotional as well. Now that the dust has somewhat settled, now is the time to start talking about these numbers and to start talking about, okay, this is even if the numbers don't fare well, okay, this is what has happened under the last year or so, or a couple of years or so under my leadership. This is what I plan to do, and you can fact check me the next time this whole thing come around. Like, it's a time and a place for everything. And I think that, when the city manager tried to do it then, people might not have been, had open ears at that time, because everybody was up in arms.
Mm-hmm.
The state of the city, absolutely, it's time to start talking numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in January of this year, we had 6 or 7 shootings in Price Hill over the New Year's weekend. And I wrote to the city and I suggested that now is the time to audit our crime data to see whether or not the crime data is actually accurate, how they collect it and how they report it. And for example, when Columbus recently appointed a new police chief, that's the first thing she did. The first thing she did was audit their crime data and found that because of some quirk in reporting to the state, they reported some data to the state, others they didn't. As a result of that, there was like 13,000 or even greater number of crimes that never made it into their database. And those kind of things happen. In Washington, D.C., they found that the police were intentionally dumbing down reports of crime. They would take a shooting, for example, and call it vandalism or something like that. Those things go on. And I suggested that in order to get everybody on board to what's going on with crime, that they audit the crime data. Well, they didn't do that. I also wanted them to assess the consolidation of the police districts. They eliminated District 5 and kind of redid the entire police districts. And I thought that should be evaluated. They never did that. The evaluation that they did was like a 13-page PowerPoint presentation with 2 pages of data on it. That's just not good public policy making. And those are the kind of comments that I try to make, not to, be overly critical, but there are better ways to do things. And I think the city needs to concentrate on how to do things better.
Yeah. And I believe that they are. Again, I'm not down there. I don't know everybody, but I refuse to believe that these good men and women are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs and they don't care about providing outcomes for the people. I just do not believe that. I refuse to believe that. But here's another thing is that.
Well, that's not a fair statement, though, to make, Nathan.
How's not a fair statement?
And I think one of the things that bothers me is anytime you criticize somebody or you point out something, that's how it's interpreted, that somehow you're saying folks don't care about the city or they're not working hard. That's not the saying that you're not doing, to Todd's point, saying that you may not be evaluating or looking at something the best way and maybe you need to consider a different way of doing it is not the same as saying you don't care or people aren't working hard. I think anybody who's done a job.
Well, let me restate it then. Let me
trying to come at something from a good standpoint. You could just be doing it wrong.
Let me restate it then. Let me restate it. I understand your point. Let me restate it. I refuse to believe that these highly trained, highly educated people don't care and are not constantly reevaluating the way that they do things because they care about providing outcomes for citizens. I just don't believe that you have all these highly trained, highly experienced people that work for the city who aren't constantly reevaluating their outcomes. I don't believe that whatsoever. I think it's far easier to sit on the outside and critique than to understand what's happening on the inside. I just refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe it.
Well, I think that's where transparency comes in. I do think the city could do a lot more to be transparent. Just one little example. If you ever look at their agendas for the city council meetings, some of them are like 20 pages long, and it's all this legal mumbo jumbo. And in order to understand what the city council is doing, you got to run the agenda through ChatGPT or something to find out exactly what they're doing. They move money around, and all of a sudden they come up with all this money to do things. Where'd the $5 million for the public safety supplemental come from? They have plenty of money. They just don't really have a good process for letting the people know where it's coming from and how they're spending it.
Well, I mean, welcome to America. You might have to get an education so you can understand some things, right? You might have to invest in yourself so that you can understand the complex language that a city government uses. Whose fault is that? So here's another thought. Like, I'm around the city all the time. The city is building all kinds of, like, they call them luxury apartments, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 for what I would think would be a mortgage for a house that's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square feet. Somebody's paying it. I go downtown, I see people walking their dogs. They got cardigan sweaters over their shoulders. They don't have a care in the world. What are they doing? Why are they able to afford Cincinnati? Why are they moving to Cincinnati? Why didn't everybody do what they did? I don't get it. But so I think there's a responsibility, and we'll always believe there's a responsibility for the city to lift people up. But I also think that people have a responsibility to invest in themselves as well, so you can get out here and compete in this world.
We
Yeah,
can't disagree with that.
again, I think that's just an overly simplified way of looking at it. Let's just go out and do what these people in these cardigan sweaters is doing. First of all,
What did they do?
Well, first of all, Nathan, we know and we talk about these issues all the time about why wealth gaps exist between people of color and people in the majority. How many of those people with cardigan sweaters on did you see that look like you or me that's living in those $2,500, $3,000 places that you're talking about?
More than you would think.
Yeah,
I see a whole lot of black and brown people. They seem to be living their best lives, living in some of these luxury apartments.
Okay.
Now, to your point, where I think you're going is you're absolutely right. There is a racial divide in this. But what I'm saying is, yeah, I think we need to critique the city and push it to do better for all people, especially people on the bottom. But people have to invest in themselves too, so that you're able to get out here and compete in this world.
But who's to say that people aren't investing in themselves? Like, let's be very honest about it. Because what I will say is, even if the cardigans and the poodles downtown that you've seen, Nathan, have been black and brown bodies, I can guarantee that most of them, if not all of them, have probably been transplants from other places. They have worked for a company that has just, because that's what's happening in the city right now. These companies from other places set up shop in the city and they bring people in to train, to hire, to set up that business. That's what you're seeing. I'm almost more than confident in that. For somebody who is black or brown and grew up here, it's not such an easy thing to climb up that ladder and find myself in an opportunity that I could even possibly see myself walking a poodle with a cardigan downtown. That's just not the trajectory of my life. I am at 32 just now stepping into what I would consider a quote unquote big girl career, because I have done all the things that I was told I was supposed to do. I went to school, I got an education, I got into the workforce to build up my resume. I have, at one point in time when I was on the radio, they used to call me Raven the Jamaican because I had 20 million jobs trying to get to a bag. Like, it's not that I don't want to be able to afford to live here. It's not that I don't have the opportunity. Sometimes it's just that the pathway to what you're seeing is not the same for somebody who grew up here. And there's many factors for that. And that is what the city needs to address. If we're going to say, well, invest in yourself, do the work, get educated. Okay, cool. But also the city needs to be putting forth initiatives to make the path easier. Because I can do all those things and still find myself living paycheck to paycheck. That is the life and the reality of many a millennial. We have been sold a dream of getting education and being able to afford our heart's desires. And it's just not been that. I'm sorry.
And let's be honest, the city has made significant investments, more investments, for the types of people that you just described, Nathan. I mean, if there's a criticism that of this council, and you heard Michelle Dunn and other people say it, is that there is a heavy lean toward the business interests and developers in this community. It's one of the things that we talk about and complain, and you just can't ignore the fact that is a tremendous part of who this council and this mayor have catered to over the course of the last few years is the business types in this community. 3CDC, somehow or another, I'll say it again, managed to get $1 million out of the crime fighting bill that this $5 million was manufactured from. Okay, so let's not sit here and pretend like, and this is what I hate about, I always say, man, you block for people that you like and you criticize people that you don't. And I see y'all doing a lot of blocking for this Democratic council and this Democratic mayor when you would level the same type of criticisms against Republicans or others who are doing the exact same thing. And so I can be fair about the critiques. The critiques that are being put on this council, they're critiques. They're fair critiques. That point to the
all critiques are fair. Yeah, to me, I mean, when you're an elected official, it's all fair. But so I asked a question about data points. Let me put it out again. And then Raven said something, and I thought she was on point. I get where she's coming from, but what I think, and maybe they're already doing this. So if they're already doing it, then that's just on me. I missed it, but I think the data points should be like native-born citizens of Cincinnati, tracking their progress, tracking when they graduate, if they graduate from public schools, tracking if they live in the city of Cincinnati for their entire lives, tracking the likelihood that you can be born in one sort of class and then raise yourself up. Like people say Cincinnati is a great place to live. Yeah, if you got money, everywhere is a great place to live. Like you can live in the Arctic and be living like Superman and Lex Luthor, right? It's great. You got Wi-Fi and internet, anything in the Arctic Circle. But if you were born, in a certain class in Cincinnati, can you educate yourself and work yourself up through your own hard work, creativity, ingenuity? Can you be born in Avondale and end up living in Hyde Park? Tracking the likelihood of that happening, tracking, the average number of Cincinnati born homeowners, right? Are they able to reach the point where they can buy a home in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or never? I mean, some of these numbers, I'm sure they're somewhere, but I think those numbers would be a better indication, or at least to give me a deeper insight into whether Cincinnati is a great place to live. What do you guys think? Any data points come to mind?
Say that last part again, Nathan.
Which part?
So you were right before you said the show that Cincinnati is a better place to live. Like,
yeah, I mean, tracking. Like, if I'm born in Cincinnati and I'm born, maybe in a working class or maybe impoverished neighborhood in Avondale, what's the likelihood that I can buy a home in Avondale before I die? Right? Can I rise? Can you rise in Cincinnati if you're born here? Through hard work, ingenuity, educating yourself, investing in yourself, can you create generational wealth and leave something for your family? Or are you stuck? That's a data point that to me would be an indication as to whether Cincinnati is a great place to live, because rich folks and wealthy folks, man, it's good wherever they live at. They got luxury boxes wherever they go, right?
You know what I think it hinges on? I think it hinges on a few different things that the average person might not always have access to. Like, I think that what you said is very much so possible. I think that there are certain factors that have to be present for it to become a reality, though. Like, I think that you have to be somebody who, some of it is networking, some of it is right place, right time, some of it is being introduced to the right individuals. I will say for myself, I have been abundantly blessed to where I have chosen an industry that affords me a pretty big network of people. So when I say that I want to get certain things done, I can utilize certain relationships to do said things. For somebody who has always worked a pretty standard average 9 to 5, where networking wasn't a key essential part of the job that you've been doing for majority of your young life, you might not necessarily see that same easy pathway to the things that you want out of life. I can say that I've come into contact with most of the city's government officials and leaders just by being in the studio every day, by running boards. I have Avtab Purevol's phone number in my phone right now. I don't never use it, but I'm just saying I have access to a network that most people don't have access to if you are just your average Cincinnati citizen who has been working a customer service job your whole life, or some other kind of just regular average Joe 9 to 5. That person who's been doing that and been trying their best to, and by that way, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they're going to have a way harder time figuring that out because they've not found themselves in the quote unquote right place, the right time. They don't know the right people. And a lot of times people who come from a level of wealth, that ain't even like a second thought for them because they are born into those positions. They're born into those opportunities. I can go to my father's Christmas party at his office and run into the person who probably gonna sell me a house one day, and they're gonna give me a deal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain things that come with wealth that ain't necessarily have to do with money, but it's access, it's opportunity.
mm-hmm.
If you are an average person, like I said, and you do an average 9 to 5 job, that's gonna be way harder for you to get that done.
Yeah, I think, and there are probably some organizations that have charted this that can look at. I mean, you can tell by like different zip codes in the city, like health outcomes, income outcomes. There's a whole lot of different factors that you can determine about even somebody's life expectancy, based on the zip code that they live in Cincinnati. I mean, there's a reason why when people ask you in Cincinnati what high school you went to, that tells them a lot about who you are and your trajectory and so forth and so on. Like that's why they ask that question, because in one fell swoop, it can tell somebody maybe not everything about you, but it gives them a certain profile of who you are. And there's a reason behind that. So to answer your question, Nathan, I think depending on where you live, the answer to that question is no. It's probably going to be a lot more difficult for you to quote unquote pull yourself up by the bootstraps and move out. Now, that's not to say that some people don't do it, right? The question is what percentage of your population has the opportunity and capability to do that? Like, I think we have a tendency to say, and particularly among those of us who have done it, who have made, to look back and say that I did it. But how do you compare peers? How many more people who you grew up with weren't able to make it out of the neighborhood that you made it out of? I would venture to say,
but is that your problem? I think it's also
not
this.
on an individual basis,
Yeah.
not on an individual basis, TNT, but it speaks to on some level the amount of opportunity and access, to Raven's point, that you make available to people. I believe wholeheartedly in what Nathan said about personal responsibility. We all have it. But when opportunities and access are not presented to you, it's hard.
Can I say this though, Kevin? You that great point. And you're right. So let me get back to this data point with the city, right? So I think you're exactly right. Like, so asking about the city of Cincinnati, is the city of Cincinnati currently providing those avenues for people to rise if they choose to take them? Because I see all kinds of opportunities. I see nothing but opportunities. I see nothing but ways to connect with people and resources. I've always seen it. So if I can see it, why can't other people see it? And not just seeing it, why don't other people take advantage of it? Does Cincinnati have that network, that apparatus of opportunities that exist? So if people are inclined to do it, they can take advantage of it and try to rise.
My opportunities came through the schools, though. I think there's a terrible disconnect between the city government and our school district. And I guess there's attempts to kind of improve that, but I think there's a lot that needs to be done. One area that I'm interested in looking into is this whole truancy issue. To what extent is Cincinnati in good shape or in not good shape? My sense is that there's somewhere in the middle, but I think chronic truancy is a big problem for educating our young people, as well as I think it is a factor in our crime issue. So I think that there needs to be a greater relationship between the city government and our school district. And you know, I haven't been paying attention all that long, but it seems like there's some kind of resistance on the part of the school district to have the city involved in their business. But I don't really know. But I think that's an area that really needs examination.
I think it would have been good to have someone like Scotty Johnson, who was on the show last time, to kind of defend themselves with all of this, because there's a lot of things being projected. And I know for a matter of fact, representatives like Scotty Johnson and Jan Michelle Kearney, they are very heavily involved, and they do partnerships with Cincinnati public schools. They help the NAACP give coats to the children at South Avondale and whatnot. But I mean, it's just easy, like I said, to be sitting back and throwing out all these different critiques, which is nothing wrong. Everyone deserves it. There's always room for improvement, but it's just like to say this isn't happening, and where is your facts? Where is your proof that what you're saying isn't just your opinion of at the moment? I would like to hear from somebody that is actually on council that can kind of defend some of this conversation.
Andre writes, because they're lazy, call it what it is. Amber writes, the city designs low opportunity outcomes. Is that true? What do you think? I don't think that the city is that's extremely cynical. Like, what does the city get out of designing low opportunity outcomes?
I don't believe that. Like I said, with individuals like Scotty Johnson, Jan Michelle Kearney, Miko, they bend over backwards to support our community and do things to help bring resources and information. Could the information get out there better if there's a better way so more people? It's like you almost preaching to the choir, but the people that really need it isn't getting those resources or getting that information. Can that be done better? Absolutely. How can we figure out a way to do those things better? But to say that it's not happening or that they don't do these things, I think that's just completely false.
Yeah, and I agree with TNT, and I don't think that look, there are a lot of really great things that are going on around the city, and this is my observance from covering these things and talking to a lot of different people. A few things that I see. One, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in silos, and people who don't know what one hand is doing and what the other is, and how they could work in conjunction. So I think that there can be a better job of all of the great things that are going on in the city, connecting those dots together. I've been in meetings where there have been people from like CMHA and other organizations where they're talking about sort of like the truancy issues, for example. And there might be some things that CMHA can do for their tenants that can encourage parents to get their kids to school, you know, within the framework of the lease agreements that they have with, but this was data that wasn't known. CMHA knew it, but it wasn't shared with anybody, any other organizations. And so I think there is a lot of information and a lot of collaboration that can happen that can create more opportunity or solve some of these problems if each organization understood better what they could bring to the table and how we could link them. That's one thing I see. The other thing that I see is exactly what TNT said, is it's as important to get the information to the people and the people who need it as it is to even have the program. If I got a great program and you don't know about it, my program is useless, right? Like I won't say it's useless, but it's not as effective as it can be if the people who need it don't know about it. So it's kind of like the point I was making with the data. You've got to do a better job in the marketing and the communication of these opportunities so that people can take advantage of it. I think one of the things that is underestimated, Andre went straight for the low-hanging fruit. Folks are lazy. I'm not going to say that folks are lazy, but I will say that it takes a little bit more effort to get someone who is growing up or who is living in an impoverished state, a state where there's not a ton of hope or even motivation. It might take a little bit more to get individuals in that situation connected to something than someone who is coming from a better situation or background who is more highly motivated, right? So if we want to just take a cynical approach and just say, hey, folks are lazy and not interested, versus maybe folks have dealt with some trauma and some severe demotivation, that it might take a little bit more effort to connect those folks and get them involved than it would somebody else. Those are the types of things that you got to acknowledge and confront in some kind of way if we want to make sure that folks are taking full advantage of the great opportunities out there. So those are the couple things I see.
Okay, appreciate it. We got Kev on the cell with us. What's up, Kev?
What's up, everybody?
Glad to hear. So I asked the question, can you rise in Cincinnati? And you answered in the chat, absolutely. Tell us your thoughts.
So first off, I was a roustabout in school, right? Not a maker, but a guy that got in trouble. And I went to Cincinnati Public Schools. So we're going to make sure that we delineate the fact that Cincinnati Public Schools may not educate our children well, but it's not because the education isn't available. It's because a lot of us don't take advantage of it. Quick story, went to Walnut Hills, failed out on purpose. That's me. Went to People's junior high, top of the class, of course, because half the stuff that we were doing at People's, I'd already done at Walnut Hills. Then I went to Withrow, and the stuff that I did at Walnut Hills, I'd already done. I mean, the stuff that I was doing at Withrow, I had done at Walnut Hills as well. So I was able to skate through all of that. Went into the workforce, forklift operator, all of that. Eventually went back to school, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, and now I do well. But the start of all of this is two parents, right? Who, one was a contractor, he didn't work all the time. My dad was in the household, so I will say that, but he didn't work all the time. My mother worked her things to the bone. She worked her butt off, you know what I mean, in order to make sure that we did well. When we got to this city, we had nothing. We were sitting on the floor in the living room watching TV on the black and white with the channel locks. Not a joke. Dead serious, right? I have two other sisters. All three of us are college educated. Two of us have master's degree. One of us have a bachelor's degree. And my mama never made more than $12 an hour. So the story that's being told is not necessarily true. Now, I'm not gonna call people lazy. I don't feel like that. I think that people are unaware, and that is true. I know people who have never been anywhere. Literally, their worldview is their block, and they have never been any further than that. So the people that they look around and they see have exactly what they have, and they're like, "Hey, listen, the only way somebody gonna the only way I'm gonna know I'm poor is if somebody else tells me, because the people around me say I'm doing well, right?" So the biggest thing for us is, I feel, is we need to get back into the community and then start telling those stories. You ain't got to be a rapper to be rich. You don't have to work at the radio station. And I did, by the way. I will say that I worked at the Wiz when I was younger. I made a lot of connections, but I didn't use any of those connections to get my education. I didn't use any of them any of those opportunities to own what I own or have what I have. I didn't use any of that. What I got was an education, and then I used that education to go do some work. And that was right here in good old fashioned Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been living here 47 years. I ain't lived nowhere else. So you can't attribute it to going anywhere else. You can't attribute it to be. I grew up in Madisonville. You can't attribute it to growing up rich. You can't, none of that. It's the same resources available to everybody. And that's why I put that in the chat.
So where are you sitting today?
I'm sitting in my house. Right?
Is it your house or you renting?
No, this is my house. And I own an apartment building as well. And I have some other things as well. You know, I do okay. I work for a Fortune 500 company, and I do very well. But my mother never saw a check that looked anything like a check that I did or had gotten. And so I want us to stop dissuading people, right, from saying that they can't do it too. There's nothing stopping you from, there's nothing stopping you from gaining wealth, familial wealth, for passing on that wealth. You know what I'm saying? My mama on $12 an hour, and my father making, I don't know what my dad made an hour, honestly, making whatever they made, paid off their home, and they live a comfortable life now. And it's just because of that. They're just regular old folk. They ain't do nothing special. There was no, you don't have to be Jay-Z and Beyonce to have a good life out here. That's just not real. And that's what people are being sold. And I don't think it's just a really bad package.
Yeah. Any questions for Kev before he rolls out?
Yeah, because
I don't have any questions, but I will say that I think timing is everything. Like, I think that, first of all, congratulations. Like, I love that you were able to find your way and find your path. I do believe that I've heard stories like yours more than once. So I know that it's possible. I know that, there are people who have really put in the work and put in the grind and made sure that they were able to secure for themselves and, future generations some level of achievement and or generational wealth. And I love that. I think that, again, you mentioned that your parents were able to, even making the money that they made, they were able to pay off their home. I think that was doable, those many years ago. There's no way in hell I would be able to make $12 an hour now and be able to do that same thing. I think that when we talk about your kind of a story, we have to put some context to it. I think that age plays a factor. I think that the cost of living when you were a young adult out here making the money that you did make to get into the position that you are in now, that is context that needs to be added to your success story. And I think that if you I understand the desire to want to share your own success story and use that to encourage others to do the same. That's amazing. And I'm glad that you were able to do that. But I think that some context is missing because the cost of living is not the same. The bills go up, but wages don't. I think that you have to really put that thing in perspective before you just pass off your story as a universal one. That's just me. That's because like you said, I too come from a radio background. I have most definitely had to utilize those networking connections that I made within the studio, working in the studio, to get certain things done because I didn't have any other way. My grandmother, was fixed income for majority of my life, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know how much she made an hour, but she was on her retirement checks before I got out of high school, so I know what it is to come from meager beginnings and no prior, higher education, being the first person in my family to really to go after a higher education. Like, I get all of that. I still in 2025 have just gotten what I consider my first big girl job, because it's not because I wasn't educated. It's not because I refusing to work. It was not because I ever felt like, I wasn't, the person to walk into certain it just wasn't there for me. It just didn't happen, because things are different now, because the world is different now, because opportunities are not as accessible as they may have once been. And I think that you have to put that in perspective. You have to say that, because that's reality for a lot of young
So,
people. We were sold that same dream that you're saying is available. Oh, just get educated. Oh, just
well,
work. We were all sold that dream. And a lot of us are coming to terms with reality, which is that's not enough anymore. It's just not.
so okay, I want to rebut that. First off, I disagree with you, Raven. And there's no disrespect. And I understand your story. In fact, I know your story. I listened to you on the radio when you were on the radio. So I've heard about about your grandmother. Um, but let me make sure that I put this in context, right? I started out. I did all of that other stuff, right? What the part of the story I didn't tell you is how my rise is now. It ain't later. It was now, right? I went to work at Citibank. Especially, I was in college. Went to work at Citibank. I usually step back from a job in radio as an account executive in order for me to go back to school. And so I got a job at Citibank as a collector, making $9 an hour, $9 and some change. And then I stayed there and I worked through that. I did get those degrees and everything, but all of that came from having a quote unquote low wage job, right? Worked my way up through that. So there's job right now. If you go out to any of the banks, I don't care which one it is, they pay $20 an hour to start. That's to be on the phone, to be a collector, to call people and collect bills.
I've put in job applications recently. They're not all paying 20. I can tell you that now.
Well,
Most jobs these days for entry level are
I didn't say
paying
most
maybe
jobs.
15.
I didn't say most jobs. I said at the bank. I said literally what I said at the bank. Generally working
That's what I'm
teller.
saying. I've applied to different banking jobs recently. The most I've seen is maybe 17 an hour. They're not just as of yet touching 20.
All right. So Fifth Third Bank pays 18 or $20 an hour. Citibank pays 15, 18 or 20. I think they start actually 22. U.S. Bank starts at, I believe, 22 or 25. I'm just naming big banks because that's what I'm talking about. And those big banks that have call centers in this area, all of those, Huntington as well, pays $20 an hour. All of those places that I just named are entry-level positions, and you got to be able to type 21 words a minute and be able to speak intelligently on the phone to get those jobs.
Like I said, I've applied to some of those places recently, and that's not what I saw. But continue.
And so we should talk because I know that those jobs are available. I worked for one of them, and I worked for all the rest of them. So, but my point is this: there are low wage jobs available. There are also higher wage jobs that do not have, barriers to entry, and maybe we don't talk about them enough. First off, right? And this is just me talking. Everybody has this star mentality, in my opinion. The jobs that we used to talk about that were just normal quote unquote jobs are no longer good enough. As far as buying a home, the average price of a home is $275,000 for what is called a starter home. But there are homes available on the market for less than that. Now you might have to do some sweat equity or something else in order to do that. And a lot of people are like, hey, I'm not getting my hands dirty. I want that house, but I ain't gonna, put some paint on it. The house I'm sitting in right now, I won't tell you the value of it, but I bought it very low price, and I put a lot of sweat equity into it, and then I put some money into it behind that. I did, and so I'll tell the truth. Now I hired a contractor, and it ain't what it was. So if you were to look up my home on the MLS or whatever, you'll see a picture of it the way it used to be. It don't look like that no more. But a lot of what I did to it, I did with my own sweat equity. I did it with my own hands. Much of it I did with my own hands because my dad was a contractor and he taught me how to do it. But so there are things that you can do so that you can be an owner of a home. And it might be a little extraordinary. It might be a little bit extra. You might have to do a little bit more than just walk into the bank and sign a loan piece of paper, right? Credit can be perfect. All you got to do is pay your bills on time. That's it. Your credits, because these people are driving around.
To do though, Kev.
And I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true. Now listen, Nate, I agree with you. Unless we're talking about you could afford to pay your bills, but you use your money irresponsibly, right? And for a lot of us, that is it. That was me. So my credit score now is really good. But there was a time my credit score was about 480.
I think,
I mean that.
yeah.
480.
Hey, Kev,
480.
Well,
I appreciate you.
I think,
Go ahead,
I'm
Kevin.
a jack off, bro.
no. I think I feel a lot of what Kev is saying, because I don't disagree with much of what he says. I think our messaging needs to be what is possible. As a kid who grew up that way, who never once thought there was anything that I couldn't accomplish, because that was the kind of household that I was raised up in, and the messaging that I received. It's often foreign to me to think of people who think about their opportunities as limited, because that was never my mentality. But I also understand that all of that is very personal within the context of what you're born into, how you're raised. And so that's why I said, is it possible to make it out? Absolutely it is. But for many people, that climb is going to be different and harder because of circumstances that you might have been born into, or situations that you find yourself in that are through no fault of your own, that shape your mentality, whether you like it or not. I mean, if I sat down with Kev and I did an interview with him, I could peel back the layers of his story and even his parents' story in ways that would help him understand that as much as you think you pulled yourself up by your
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I want you to understand that. I don't think that at all.
right,
This is not a pull up
there were some
story.
interventions. There were some interventions in your life. There was some information. There was some work that you absolutely had to do, some study, some research, but you had to have a mentality shift, right? At some point, because you were on a certain path.
I'm gonna leave on this, Kevin. I'm gonna leave on this. Because I'm mindful of y'all time, and I'm not trying to usurp the show. But I'm gonna leave on this. It was not any. Well, one, I do believe in a higher power, so I'm gonna say, number one, it was God. Thank God for God. We're gonna say that first. And then secondly, what it was people around me who were sort of outside of my circle, who looked in and said, "This don't have to be your life. Like what you're doing right now is stupid. You need to do something different." And all I'm saying is, we need to start doing that. We need to start. So I'm a mentor, right, to a couple of young men. We need to start doing that. We need to start reaching back and be like, "This doesn't have to be your story." That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
But I would also say that there had to be something about those individuals from outside of your circle that spoke to you, that gave you a reason to listen to them. Because I'm sure, based on what it sounds like you were telling me, that you came up with two hardworking parents who probably, when you was out there tripping, probably gave you the same messages, but you wasn't listening to the message when they gave it to you. But somebody from outside your circle that gave you the same. So there was a reason you listened to them, but you didn't listen to the people who was closest to you. And this is what I'm saying, is like the psychology that's behind all of these things that we talk about, the programs and everything that sounds good. What we tend to forget is we deal with people with emotions and mentalities and trauma that all of that plays a factor in the decisions that you make that lead to success. And we always want to take that human element out of it. And we just want to determine that people are lazy or that they're this and that. No, people are people that are trying to figure it out. And there's something that goes on in that process. And this is the type of internal work that most people don't do or sit down to take the time to think like, how did I actually get to where I'm at? And what needed to happen? What had to shift in my heart and in my mind? What were the things that made me successful, right? And it may be different for all of us, but that's the process we don't spend enough time talking about and examining. That goes beyond program, right? That's getting into a different type of interaction that we're talking about.
The people that reached out to me, absolutely. I appreciate you, bro. No problem. The people that reached me were the people that came down to my level and spoke the same thing that I spoke at the time. And I think that's what we need to do. Thanks.
Hey, don't be a stranger, man. Don't be a stranger. Thanks. And it's just that easy. At the top on all the media platforms that we're on right now, social media, Facebook and YouTube, at the very top pin, there's a link and you can join the show just like Kevin did, or Kev on the cell. So let's move on. Let's talk about the Epstein files. And in general, I want to get your thoughts on it. Like, what do you believe? Like, do you believe that our president is in the Epstein's files. And when I say in the Epstein files, I mean he's in the Epstein's files. Do you believe that? Do you believe that this might wreck the rest of his administration? Do you believe that if some really bad information comes out about our president, that he should be impeached? Think about all of that. But first, I want to approach it through the lens of what Stephen A. Smith said, who is increasingly moving more into the world of politics. He said recently on this show that he slammed the Democrats after emails were released this past week, saying basically like, why didn't the Democrats release them under Joe Biden? Matter of fact, I think I might, here it is. See if I can play this for you.
The Epstein files were in existence and free to have been opened during the Biden administration. You were there for 4 years. How come you didn't open it as a Democratic Party then? What am I missing?
You're missing it.
I'm not saying I know. It's a legitimate question.
No, it's
Maybe I don't remember the answer. Maybe my extraordinary producers should be able to help me during the commercial break. But from my understanding, the same files that were open or being open now with the 220 pages of documents or whatever it is, with various emails, that could have been done when Biden was in office.
And he has been taking super flack for that. I would say that he should have talked with his extraordinary producers before he said all of that. But what do you think? Does he have a point? Is there a point to be made there? And in general, what about those earlier questions? Like, what do you believe about the relationship between our president and the Epstein files? Do you believe he's in the Epstein files? And if so, and it comes out, should he be impeached? What should happen?
Stephen A. Smith is the epitome of loud and wrong. I wish. Remember when they told LeBron he said something about politics and they told him to shut up and dribble. Stephen A. shut up and sport report, because I'm sick of your opinions on politics. They're never informed. They're never like, stop talking about politics. Just stop it. That's not your job. That's not what that is not your calling. I had a conversation with my Heavenly Father, and he told me personally, that is not your calling, bro. You knew nothing before you started opening your mouth and talking about this. The Biden administration could not open the Epstein files because during his administration, Giselle, whatever her name is, the girlfriend, it was still an active open case. So there was no reading the files. And then at the end, he tried to switch it up and say, well, the emails then. Why didn't they say anything about the emails? Because how do you get to the emails without talking about the case is still open? Stephen, why are you talking right now? Like, Stephen A. Smith really irks my nerves. And I feel like a big part of the reason why he's only saying any of this is because it has to be the two reasons. Either he thinks his name gonna pop up somewhere in them files, or somebody who pays him a lot of money to do what he does for a living has told him, hey, I need you to start speaking in a specific way about this particular thing, or maybe he's just a diehard MAGA Republican. That could be an option as well, because I think that's more likely. He's a MAGA Republican, but let's put that aside. If that's not it, somebody whoever pays his checks to do his show, they are probably themselves definitely afraid that they might end up with their name in some file somewhere or something along those lines. And they've just told Stephen, they've given him his barking orders. Hey, I need you to start making people think twice about these Epstein files. Either way it go, Stephen ain't the one to do it, because clearly he don't do enough research. He don't listen to his producers. He don't have. Do he even talk to his producers? Like, do you even have conversations with your producers before you do your show? Because if you had, maybe you would have known the answers to all of them asinine questions that you just asked. There was no reason for any of that. And to go and answer the question that Nate originally asked, unfortunately, our current sitting president is a 34-time convicted felon. He has also been named, was it a criminally? They haven't said that he was a rapist, but he was like criminally liable for sexual assault or something like that. Like, he has so much dirt on his name, it would be the equivalent of throwing like dust on a pile of dirt. Does it even matter if his name shows up? Because what they're gonna do?
I think it does.
MAGA's gonna do what MAGA does. They're going to explain it away. They're going to minimize it. I promise you, it's gonna be more of the same.
This one is different. I think this one is different because if there's one thing that MAGA has been on the hot trail of for a number of years, is this Epstein file. And you can say it's because maybe they thought it was going to be filled with the files of Democrats and that sort of thing. But one of the things these folks are not playing around with is these pedophiles. And that's what I would say is that the proof would have to be conclusive, right? Because Trump is he's already doing it. He's trying to spin it on, oh, hey, this is a hoax, and they're just trying to get the emphasis off of the government shutdown. He does what he does with the fake news, and that's nothing new. Whenever he's trying to get the heat off of him. But if there was some damaging evidence that was conclusive that came on Trump, I actually think that this would be one of the few things that would be a game changer with some of those people in the MAGA base, because they have been rabid about. Remember, they've been the main ones calling for the release of the Epstein files.
I remember Pizzagate and all that stuff. Democrats. Yeah, I remember them being loud and proud about Pizzagate and all of that stuff, and they were so sure that Bill Clinton was on the list and Obama was on the list and Hillary was on. Like, I remember that, and then they got real quiet because they became MAGA Republicans because they real, and I'm talking real MAGA Republicans, the diehard kind that would go and shoot up FBI buildings behind this man. Like, they became that kind of MAGA Republican who it don't matter whether it's true or not. I have chosen Donald Trump as my Lord and Savior, and no matter what he does, he's untouchable, and that's why I don't believe it matters. Yes, he's absolutely no foul.
On most things, you're right. On most things, I would agree. On this one, I think this is one.
So you truly believe that the Epstein files is what would break the MAGA camel back? You truly believe that?
I absolutely do, and I think not only would it break his back with MAGA, this is the out card that a lot of Republicans who have been reluctantly going along with Trump because he have a loaded gun to their head. This is their get out of jail free card. If it actually happens to turn into something credible, they can finally disavow Donald Trump and abuse themselves of that, because to go along with him is something that's going to show up. Look, they got to run for election after Donald Trump is gone. And the one thing that they're not going to want to have attached to their resume is, hey, I backed the dude that was involved in sex trafficking and pedophilia with young kids. That's not a winning formula on a campaign trail. But
they're not gonna say it like that. They're gonna spin it. They're gonna diminish it. They're gonna try to say that, oh, this has been, because we've seen them do it before. Oh, this is
this is different, though, Raven.
This is Democrat trickery. This is lies spread by the Democrats.
Pedophilia is different. Pedophilia is different, I would even say, than groping women. I mean, you got a lot of misogyny that's involved in that. But I'm telling you, this is different. As for the Stephen A piece, Stephen A, I agree with everything Raven says. Stephen A's spot is in sports. He's trying to diversify himself to show that he can exist on the political train, and it's all about the bag. I don't even know that this is necessarily about what Stephen A's personal convictions. To hear him tell it, he voted for Kamala Harris, okay, whether you want to believe that or not. I think he's trying to position himself as someone who can speak a fair arbiter, or somebody who's balanced. He can be critical of the Democrats. He can be critical of President Trump. That's how he's tried to position himself. He'll go on Hannity and he'll go on Cuomo's show. So that's how he's trying to position himself. But it's no more than for the bag and for his own ego purposes. That's how I see what Stephen A is doing with this politics. He's just trying to raise his profile for, whatever career reasons. I don't believe for a minute that he even actually believes that he could make a run for the presidency. I know that's been put out there. Even as big as Stephen A's ego is, I don't even think he believes that he could make a serious run for president of the United States. This is about the bag. This is about his ego, raising his brand. But I agree, he needs to get with his producers and make sure he gets his facts straight, because that's one of the things that's going to put his credibility in the toilet real quickly, and nobody's going to take him seriously when he's getting the facts wrong.
Todd, what do you think, Todd?
Well, this whole Epstein case has been corrupt from the beginning. If you go back to 2008, when he was prosecuted the first time, that prosecution was corrupt. And he should have been thrown in jail for a long, long time back in 2008. But it was such an unusual situation where you had the federal government. It had a very, very strong case against Epstein. They had the indictment was, I don't know, like 50 pages long. And the state had a case against Epstein, and it was basically some, prostitution type case. Well, as it turns out, the federal government wound up dropping their case and letting the state take care of their case. And then when Epstein went to jail, he had like his own suite and all the rest of that. And the prosecutor involved, the Miami U.S. attorney involved, he became a Trump appointee for the Labor Department and had to resign when all this came out. So the thing's been corrupt from the beginning. And I don't really understand what the holdup is with these records. I just don't understand it.
What do you think, though, Todd? I mean, what do you believe? Do you believe that the president is in? And when I say in, I mean implicated in the Epstein files, in your opinion?
If I say no, everybody's going to jump all over my case because, mega. But I really doubt that Trump is hiding some kind of involvement with an underage girl or whatever the case. I think he may be protecting somebody, but I just don't think it's himself.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I have never known Trump to care about nobody but himself. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. Like, I think he's all over. And the only time this man is quiet, because he's such a publicity, I ain't even gonna say that word, but he always want to be in front of the camera every single day. He is not taking any questions. Even right after this government shutdown, when you think he would want to say and talk his stuff, after that, all of that was released, he's just like, no questions. And that's really suspicious. That's really suspicious behavior to me. Stephen A. Smith, Lil George Jefferson, he needs to just sit 100 seats down. You know what I'm saying? We don't need none of his commentary. We don't need none of his commentary. I mean, to me, it's such a disconnect. Just thinking about the victims and these women who were young ladies at the time, what they've been through and how long they've been fighting to get this release. It's being released now, not because of this government per se, but because of the Epstein's estate and by the subpoena that was placed on it. And so I'm just thinking about these women and their fight, and they don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, Independent. They just want somebody to advocate for them, to be their voice, and to fight for them so they can get justice. I think about, as we speak, there's children being trafficked, women being trafficked, and to look at the news or to hear people at the highest level making excuses for this man or to call it a hoax or everything that they're doing, or just to do everything they can to delay these files being released. I think it hurts people that see themselves trapped in a situation right now, like the rich and powerful always get away. They always get away. And it just sets a horrible example. And for someone like Stephen A. Smith to just kind of do this, well, why now? Why now? Like, what are you even saying? Like, and then as far as Trump, of course he's in there. Like I said earlier, he's awfully quiet. And he's like, I think this has him more afraid than anything else, because the House is going to vote. They have enough votes for the House, and the pressure is going to be applied. The Senate, if they go ahead and the ones that say that they won't vote for it, then that seems like you're a guardian of pedophiles, and that's going to be on your record. And if that's what you want on your record, like Kevin said, when you're up for re-election, be prepared for that, because there's no coming back from that. Trump will be long gone, and you still have to run again. And then even if it gets to Trump and he decides to veto it, well, that's going to even look more suspicious. So I'm hoping that it'd be such a great majority of people saying release the files in the House and Senate that they have a super majority to overcome a veto, and that won't happen. But even if we get to that point, all of this, as long as this is talked about, it's not a good day for Trump. It's never a good day for Trump. And Stephen A. Smith, he could be mad at the Democrats because right now they're being the champions to drain the swamp, because that's what we're seeing right now. And you got to think about Trump too. Wasn't he the same guy that said that that he would date his daughter? This is the same guy that allegedly, but Miss Teen USA, he walked in on them while they were getting dressed, and that they have accusations against him, young girls and Miss Teen USA, and he's walking in as they're dressing. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, all of it's suspicious. The email messages really, really sound horrible. That the card, the elusive card that came out, all of that. And he could say that's not my signature, that's not the way I speak, and everything else, but all things tie back to you, those pictures, those videos, and everything else. You had a deeper relationship with this gentleman, and from the grave, he is going to bring you to hell, is what it looks like to me.
So I have a
And
question for
a couple
Todd.
of facts.
I got a quick question for Todd. You know, put your Inspector General hat back on for you again, Todd, because you and I agree with what you said, like the way that you talked about the timeline. You said this whole thing has been corrupt. And again, from where I'm sitting, with my limited knowledge, just my opinion about what I've read, yeah, it appears that there's definitely, you know, a multi-tiered system. And it appears that Jeffrey Epstein and whoever is in the Epstein files have had the privilege of hiding behind it. But what does it say that Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman who was convicted of conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors, she was given 20 years in prison. What does it say to you, Todd? Does it register as corrupt that this year, you know, this administration worked to get her moved from a high-profile maximum security facility to now she's in a low minimum security facility, and there's talk about she might get a pardon. What does that say to you?
You know, that says to me that you really can't take to the bank anything that she's saying.
Yeah.
How so?
So Todd, Todd, listen, man, come on now. You're better. I'm gonna challenge Todd for the first time here today, because that was an artful dodge, Todd. That was an artful dodge. First of all, if you can't believe anything Ghislaine Maxwell says, then you can't believe anything Donald Trump says, because they're both noted liars who you can't believe anything that they say. So the president's denials mean nothing. I mean, the fact that Trump has told like 3 or 4 different stories about why him and Jeffrey Epstein's friendship ended, you know, why he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, he's changed that story no less than 3 times. So I think the question that Nathan is saying is, in the same way that they were pulling in members of Congress at the last minute to try to get them to vote against the release of this file, I think a more direct question that Nathan tried to ask you in a more polite manner than I'm going to say is, don't you find that suspicious? Why would someone move someone, a noted liar that you can't trust, as you just said, from a maximum prison facility into a lesser prison facility, and then also be lobbying members of Congress to not vote in favor of the release of the files if there wasn't? That doesn't strike you as suspicious?
Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. What I was trying to say is that my sense of them moving her is in exchange for her not disclosing things, that they're trying to basically pay her off with, they're holding out a pardon, they're giving her better conditions in her prison. So my sense is that they're doing that because there's some kind of agreement or some kind of discussion that she's going to keep her mouth shut.
To TNT's point, thanks for the clarification there, Kevin. To TNT's point, and thanks for your for clarifying that, because I was kind of looking at you side eyes, and yeah, Kevin was he was nice about it. I appreciate it. But TNT says something that registers true to me. Like, I don't know Donald Trump. I've never met the man. I was within a few hundred feet of him at the RNC a few years ago. His family walked past me. I read the energy, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot. So when I'm trying to assess him, what I do is I go to sources on YouTube, people that have grown up with him, his family, Mary Trump, people inside the administration, people who work with him, the author Michael Wolff, who's all tied up with the release of the Epstein files, people who've spent real time with him and observed him over decades. And there is nothing in anything that I've ever read. I've got the Art of Deal in my collection because I wanted to get more information about him. He's the president. There's nothing I've ever read in which our president, Mr. Trump, has ever done anything for anybody other than himself, right? To TNT's point. So it's hard for me to imagine and I don't know who this might be, that he would go this far to protect somebody other than himself. Now, I could be wrong, but again, this is just my read of other people's reads because I don't know the president. Does anybody else feel the same way? Or because I think TNT made that point. I don't think she's off base with that at all.
The only thing I would venture to say is perhaps one of his children, that he might be willing to try to protect, if one of his children were in there, possibly. I mean, look, it strains credulity to think that, look, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were boys. They were friends, right? Okay. During the time that Epstein was engaged in a lot of this type of nefarious behavior. So even if you want to say, hey, there's no truth, or I don't believe Donald Trump was involved in the trafficking of these young children or anything like that, then you got to take another leap to say, well, he didn't know anything about it, right? And if he knew something about it, yet did nothing or said nothing about it, doesn't that also make him complicit in everything that happened? And then should that also not be a character judgment of the person who is leading our country that, okay, even if you didn't do anything, this was your guy and you knew what he was doing, yet you said nothing? Like, I think that's maybe not as damaging as participating in it, but it certainly is damaging nonetheless. And I think all you got to do is look at some of the emails that have been released recently where Epstein talked about just damaging information that he had against Donald Trump, that if he put it out, he could tear Donald Trump down. Now, one could say, oh, that's just sour grapes, or he was just blowing smoke, because if he had it, why didn't he release it? Unfortunately, that might not be anything that we won't know this side of the grave unless Epstein confided in somebody in his estate or in his circle on the reasons why he didn't go scorched earth on Donald Trump. But he certainly intimated that based on the relationship that they had, the very cozy relationship that they had, he had some damaging information about Donald Trump that he could use if he so chose to do it. And so whether that is his connection with this or something else, I think it all goes back to the fact that no matter what you want to believe, this has been one of the most corrupt presidents, the most immoral presidents that we have ever had in the history of this country.
Todd, would you agree with that?
As if I know intimately everything about every president that's occurred.
Well, I mean, it's just your opinion.
I should say what we know publicly. All right, I'll put that caveat in there in terms of what's been reported.
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, that's fair. I just want to get you in there. I saw a way in. I don't know, man. I hear about this. Go ahead, TNT.
I want to ask, did you think Bill Clinton, when he had the little affair at the White House, did you think that was corrupt or deserved impeachment?
Impeachment, I don't remember enough about that case in terms of what exactly, whether he lied about it or not, but
just the act itself. That we all know.
To me, it indicated that the guy had a sex problem. And if you're going to impeach the guy over a sex problem, there's probably several presidents that should have also been impeached, from what I understand. But I don't think it made Clinton necessarily corrupt. I think he had a problem with sex.
Yeah, interesting.
He didn't get impeached. Just for clarity, they didn't impeach him over the sex. They impeached him about lying.
Yeah, it was a lie.
But I think that all of this is really just a peek into, for the average American, I think all of this is just a peek into the way a lot of these upper wealth social circles operate. Like, this is nothing more than a couple of wealthy white men who have, lived on a certain side of life. It's the culture. It's the social culture over there. It's why and in the New Yorker they have the whole section dedicated to the socialites in the city and all of their business and all of their gossip and they dirty, they dirty laundry. Like, they live a whole different kind of life, and that comes with the kind of social, parameters and social relationships that it wouldn't mirror something like me and you know, TNT, like me and you can get on the phone and gossip about, girl, you heard about such and such. Like the way that we would perform friendship would be something completely different between Donald Trump and a Jeffrey Epstein. They have access to an obscene amount of wealth, and that brings access to, you know, things that me and you have never even you know what I'm saying? Like, it's never even occurred to us to be trying to be out here trying to traffic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wouldn't. That don't exist in our realm of reality. And I think what we've seen is the fallout of that, of two very wealthy white men who had a very close relationship, who they did very debaucherous things together, or at least they knew about each other's debaucherous behaviors. And one of them got caught up. One of them got it caught red-handed, and he kind of had to figure out, okay, if I go down, do I take this shit with me, or do I keep it to myself? And before he could be put on trial for his crimes, I ain't gonna say the man killed himself. I don't necessarily believe that he killed himself. I do believe a bit of the conspiracy that maybe somebody did it for him, if I'm gonna be real with you. But I do think that that's what comes again with that level of wealth. We're watching that kind of, like, those kind of social circles kind of divulge, and all the spider web like complexities of what that is and how that exists and operates. We're seeing glimpses of it, and we won't fully understand it unless we're from that world. And I think that putting something like this particular case on trial, exposing these files, would give the average American citizen a real view into what it is like to be in that level of wealth and traveling in those packs of social circles where they do stuff like this all the time. You can't convince me that the reason why the Epstein files are so controversial, that's it's controversial to the American citizen because we don't know nothing about that stuff. But all of the upper 1% of wealth in this country, they all have caught wind of something similar to that, and they know that that's how. The reason why they don't care for that stuff to be put out there in the open is because they know if you open up this, it's going to get people's minds thinking. What else are they up to? What else are they doing? What else do they have their hand in? What kind of debaucherous behavior are the upper 1% actually up to? And that's why you have so many people trying to quiet this down, trying to blow it off, trying to write it off. They don't want us in their business. I'm trying to be all up in the business because now I need to figure out what y'all doing, because it's hurting real people.
It's not hard to figure out though, Raven. I mean, if you look, you're right. The average person is not involved in this or doesn't have access to it, but it's not too hard to imagine that a lot of people, particularly men who are in those upper echelons, engage in this type of thing. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that the New England Patriots owner, Robert Kraft, you remember it wasn't a pedophilia operation, but he was clearly involved in some sex trafficking at some massage joints where there was some ladies who was involved in some sex trafficking who was taking care of him. And look, you're not gonna have me believe for 1 minute that in the network of NFL owners that Robert Kraft was the only one, or that Robert Kraft was the only one in that economic bracket that was engaging in that type of activity at that in those particular circles. You know, whether you're talking about escorts or sex trafficking or whatever. I mean, I think we saw it with Diddy parties and all that. You know what goes on and in these.
Listen, they just need to release the records and let the chips fall where they may. It's as simple as that.
Yes,
agreed. Even if it shakes institutions and people's trust. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Absolutely.
No, and to a point that TNT made earlier, that I think is important for the media to not lose. A couple of things that I would say the media needs to be cautious about is first thing, don't lose sight of the victims of this, right? Like every headline and everything that's being talked about, it's Trump, right? Like there's no consideration being given to these women, their battle, they're trying to get their stories out, what they've been through. They probably gotten a fraction of the press that has been dedicated to Donald Trump and whether or not he's in the Epstein files. And I get it. The man is the president of the United States, that moves headlines or whatever. But I think the press would be wise to spend more time focusing on the victims and their story and them trying to get justice through the release of this information. The other thing I think the press needs to be careful of too is is in making it all about Trump. And I get, most of us on here are not fans of Trump. Certainly I'm not. But I do think, you have to be careful of overreaching, of trying to make declarative statements or things about whether he's involved or what he's into. This is one of the things where I think, the press and some people have overreached in the past that has given Donald Trump sort of inoculation against legitimate attacks on him, right? So he'll go back, he'll say, oh, look at what the media did with the Russia hoax. They did all of this and they overplayed it and it was nothing. They didn't get me on anything on that.
Right.
And then
it was something to it, but you're right. They didn't get him. You're right.
Right. But the bottom line is no charges, nothing
stuck.
ever came to him that stuck to him. So he's able to take that and say, now in this case, this is another hoax. Remember Russia. Like he always pulls that out.
Oh yeah.
And
that only works.
So
that only goes so far. I think people getting real worn out with his excuses and blaming the Democrats and everything else. Like it's
I'm sensing that too.
And it's really his poll numbers. Everything is like bottoming out, and you can only. It's just like crying wolf. You know what I mean? You can only say that so many times before people just stop believing you. People that didn't believe you to begin with, thought it was a bunch of crap to begin with, ain't even there. But the ones that, following you like every word you say, you can only go so far with this thing. You're talking about children, young people, you know what I'm saying? And you listen to these victims and you hear these stories and the one that just had the book that came out, Nobody's Girl, Virginia Giuffre, if you take the time to hear these stories, the families that are advocating for these victims, it's just like it's time out for all of that. And when he throws out it's a hoax and this is drummed up by the Democrats and then and doing everything to prevent the release, when you had the Attorney General Pam Bondi just charged up like, oh, I got him on my desk. We're going to get this out tomorrow. And then you got the FBI director. You on podcasts talking about this all the time and now all of a sudden y'all button up. It ain't nothing to see here. Like, get out of here. Now you're the swamp. You're the swamp. And it's trying to drain all of you. They got to go.
I still can't get over the 2008 case. The biggest part of the corruption was the fact that when they made that deal, when they made that plea deal, they didn't even notify the victims who had a legal right to know and a legal right to intervene, and they covered it up. They did not inform them. And that is corruption to the max. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes all of this corrupt.
Yeah, I think there's degrees to it. And there's a Netflix show all about it too. It's so heavy. I haven't even been able to get all the way through it. I mean, it's super heavy. But I want to agree with Stephen A. Smith. He's right. The Democrats have politicized this. Absolutely. But you know what? It's tit for tat. The Republicans initially politicized it, and they use it as a campaign issue to get Donald Trump back in office. They are the ones, it was MAGA and Republicans who were always talking about the Epstein's files all through and up to the election. Years before the election, it was Republicans saying, and the Trump administration or the Trump campaign saying, if we're elected, we're going to release it. So they got elected. They didn't release it. They're slow on it. Now the Democrats are seizing an opportunity. And back to, I think, multiple points that people made, it should really be about the victims. But let me say this. Let me make a segue here. We were talking about intimate situations. Here's an intimate situation I want to get your thoughts about right here. Man goes viral after posting Christmas photos with his dog girlfriends. And, I brought it up because we were talking about Robert Kraft and Bill Clinton and these other men and their sexual picadillos. And the more I thought about this, I thought, you know what? We're living in a strange world. I'm assuming this is true because it could just be all made up for just virality. But assuming it's true, listen, if he's found if he has found his peace, if he has found his person, even if his person is not a real person, I'm not going to hate on this brother. He ain't hurt nobody. He's found love. And, it is what it is. What do you think, crew?
Hey, Nathan, first of all, you a trip for even bringing this up. That's why I love you, man. I love you. I don't even know where you found this. Look.
What is that pose?
I don't even know. There used
So
to be a time.
he's actually mimicking a theme of like poses that have been kind of going viral every year.
Right.
There's this like typically it's for real couples. They take what are called like awkward photos. And so all of the positions that you and your partner are in on these photos, they're purposefully awkward because they're meant to go viral. He's just done it with a sex doll.
Right. You know, if you're going for
You don't know where to go, do you?
clicks and you're going for viral moments. He did
He
that.
100% did this for viral moment. He 100% did this to go viral for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Are you sure about that? Because I keep hearing about a lot of men are alone, they're isolated, they don't talk to women, and they're turning to companionship with these dolls. I keep reading about
that's
this.
real. That's real. And I'm sure whatever he does with that doll is between him and that doll. But what I'm saying is the whole purpose of him taking these photos was to go viral. Like he did this in his living room. This ain't even like you know what I'm saying? He didn't go to JCPenney to do this. Like he did this in the middle of his living room with his favorite doll. He did this for the purpose of going viral. But two things can be true. He might just be in love with that doll, but he also took these pictures because he knew if I post these, I will go viral, and he did.
Yeah.
I think this though, if this is real, I think this is just the changing cultural norms and how people view the much more liberal view of sex. You know, when I was coming up, you know, it was an embarrassment if you were a man and you had a sex doll. That just meant that you couldn't get you couldn't get the real thing, you know, and it was like no self-respecting man would have ever admitted to having a sex doll, even if you had one under the bed. You would lie about it. Like you sure as heck wouldn't take pictures of you with it and post it like that was something to do. So I think I think it's emblematic of how we have become much more open to these sorts of ideas and just more liberal about these types of sex things where it's a joke, or if this guy is serious, he has no inhibitions about putting it out there. And I think that does say something about where we are culturally.
Yeah.
Y'all see anything wrong with this?
Yeah, that's weird.
Whatever that man in the privacy of his bedroom is his business. As long as he's not hurt nobody or overpowering somebody who don't want to be overpowered, that's between him.
We're losing you. Yeah, you're really, really breaking up, Raven, unfortunately. I could barely hear what you just said. Could you reiterate it, please? I couldn't hear you. You still there?
Now?
Yeah, we lost Raven.
I like what Nat Turner says, if she never say no, you know.
She never say no.
They're gonna be a Me Too for sex dolls down the line here. Wait a minute, they're gonna, trust me, somebody will find some money in saying that sex dolls got rights too, and that
sex dolls have rights too.
Yeah.
Now, when they're AI brain robot, fully capable, autonomous units, I could see that, because that's what the next thing is. I mean, if you think all this AI stuff is just about human productivity, no, some of it is about human sexuality. And there's people out there working on, sex AI robots who can mimic a real woman. I keep reading about how younger men, too high percentage of them have never approached a woman. And it's like, are we losing these basic social skills? Like, is talking and approaching a woman going the same way as reading like a traditional clock face, and like being able to read a compass or read a map, like lost skills? And if so, what does that say about where we're heading as a society?
What is the age range of these young men that we're talking about?
It was younger guys. I mean, I don't know, 20 to 30, somewhere around there.
20 somethings.
Get off the video games. Get off your phone. It's kind of like a crutch for awkward moments. I think the most important thing we could be teaching our kids is how to communicate, and to have conversations and to feel comfortable expressing how they feel. and to show your emotions around your children. Don't always try to be tough and everything else, because then they don't know how to show their emotions or feelings in situations, real life situations themselves. So you just got to be the example. But at the same time, like, it is a different generation. Like I got little nephews and nieces, grandbabies, and I'm just thinking, like, when they become teenagers, I'm gonna be an old lady. You know what I'm saying? I'll be an old lady. They ain't gonna never know me as a young woman or anything like that. But it's just like, that's the next generation, and God knows what's in store for them, coming up. But right now, yeah, my son is 19, and he ain't got no problem with the ladies. That's not his problem. But I'm just saying that I couldn't imagine him if he was just always in the house or just playing video games, or, they got to get out. They got to get out the house, touch grass, I'm saying, talk to people, have some social interactions. The kid is not doing them. Get them out of your house and have them go places and do things, because that's not healthy. Isolation is not healthy. Loneliness is not healthy for sure. But I think people find themselves in these types of weird situations after a while, and a lot more people aren't having babies. I know I have a lot of family members like Raven, they 30s going on 30s and stuff, and they don't have any kids or anything else, and they just focus on their career, but they're gonna look up and be 40 and no kids, no family, or everything else. So it's just like you living your life, and life will pass you, it will go quick. So I don't know, if people just gotta find ways to link up. There's still dating apps,
But see, I think that's part of the challenge, though, Nicole, with the dating apps, because I've watched a lot and read about this phenomenon that Nathan is talking about, and I think, kind of like what you said, this social media, digital environment, Tinder, dating app scene that we're in. I think they said that the average man has to go through something like 1,000 or 2,000 swipes before they can get to like a coffee date. And usually they get ghosted on like 4 out of 5 dates that they set up with women. And one of the things that they've said, people who have studied this have said that what these dating apps do is they create sort of like, women have these expectations that they have for a man, certain height, this, that, and the other. And what most women don't recognize is that the vast majority of men don't fall into this list of criteria that they had, that most men are not over 6 feet tall, right? But every woman wants a tall man. They want a man that makes a certain amount of money, and most men don't make that amount of money. So what winds up happening is you've got all of these women who are competing for like 10% of the men while ignoring 90%. And then they're frustrated because these 10% of the men don't want you because they got all these choices out here. It's like, hey, I got all these women that's after me. Why am I going to settle down with you? My field is plentiful. Meanwhile, 90% of the men can't get a coffee date, right? So that's their fault.
I feel like that's a bit of a cop out, though. I'll say this: what you're describing, Kevin, that's not exclusive to online dating. That's just in general. The dating pool, colloquially has fisted on both sides.
Yeah, it's happening again. I hate it too, Revan. We can't hear you. I hate it too, because you're making a good point. I understand what you're saying, but we can't hear it. It's like really choppy for whatever reason. And you're freezing up. Yeah. Dang, it's so unfortunate. Well, okay, she's back. Hopefully. Okay, she comes back. One last quick question for you. I came across this story and I thought it was so odd. Let me play it for you. It's a TikToker. It's real quick. This TikToker who has been ordered to pay $1.75 million to the husbands, to the ex-wife of a man that she was having an affair with. And apparently the wife claimed that her relationship with her husband destroyed their marriage, and she got $250,000 for something called criminal conversation, which is a legal term for having sexual intercourse with another person's spouse. This is in Durham, North Carolina. And I was like, what in the hecky? Like, should you be able to sue someone and get damages because they cheated with your spouse? What do you think?
Hell no.
That's interesting. I think that would, Hey, I tell you, if this case winds up being successful, I think that could be one of the most effective monogamy tools that might be out there. If they could take half your stuff because you cheating on your spouse, then you might wind up with nothing. If your spouse take half and then the person whose marriage you broke out get the other half, you could find yourself on the curb real quick. This might be something that promotes fidelity if this person is actually successful in this lawsuit. Man, that's deep right there.
Yeah. What do you think? Should you be able to sue somebody for that?
So you're saying that the mistress or whatever is
the
suing.
mistress has to pay $1.75 million to the ex-wife.
Oh, okay. So no, because she's not married. The husband is married. So she didn't cheat on anybody. The husband cheated. So there's no contract between her.
But she knew they were married though.
Did she? Because he could have lied. Their contract is with each other. Their vows are with each other. She's married, not the woman or whoever the cheating person is. That has nothing to do with her. The one that broke the vows is the cheater, and so all that pertains to them. That sounds ridiculous. You know what I mean? Absolutely ridiculous to me. No.
Any thoughts, Todd? You don't have to have any thoughts.
Well, it seems like she's got some cause of action for the mistress for interfering with her marriage. But I agree with TNT that a lot of it should be on the husband that cheated.
You know, I thought about this and that was my initial thought, but then I came back to something I believe about marriage. To me, at its core, marriage is a business. At its core, marriage is a business. So this would be like somebody interacting or destroying your business. So from a business argument, I get it, right? You know, a man and woman come together, to me, is more than just emotions in today's world. It is a business. It's a business you're in. The business of long-term cohabitation and all the things that come with that. And so this mistress comes in and destroys your business. So she should be compensated. Absolutely. I think the judge and the jury got it right.
No, she didn't. The husband destroyed their business. He made the choice. He could have been loyal and kept to his wife and said no, and nothing would have happened. There would be no problem. That's ridiculous. No.
It's just like it's just like you got a trademark on a brand and somebody decides that they're gonna start doing business with your brand. You would have a business argument. You deserve some relief. It's the same thing. You are now cheating with my spouse. That is my brand and my trademark. We are building a life together. We are entangled, not just emotionally, spiritually, but also economically. And you just messed that up. And so now I need to be compensated for my pain and suffering for my personal business.
So I think it depends on whether the person knew or not. Okay, so those that would be a mitigating factor. So I can kind of get with what you're kind of trying to say, Nathan. So if I know a woman is married and I intentionally engage with that woman, knowing that she's married, and destroy their marriage, then I am, even though I don't owe any obligation to her husband because I'm not married to the husband, it still takes two to tango. I'm still involved in the destruction of that union through my participatory action, knowing that. Now, if I didn't know, if the woman lied to me, she had the wedding ring on, she was telling me she was single, and I didn't know what I was getting into, and I find out later, then those should be factors that should kind of exempt you from any kind of responsibility in that case. But I could see where someone could theoretically make the case to say you were complicit in the destruction of my relationship.
Yeah, we were planning a life together. We bought a home together. We might have started a small business together, and you just messed all that up. You know, we had a retirement plan together, and now all of that goes to the wayside because you messing around with my wife, or somebody's messing around with somebody's husband. And because of the emotional toil, it impacts our personal finances and businesses. You got to pay me.
Are we talking about Tim and Brene from TikTok?
Yes. Yep.
So everything I know about these people has been against my will, because every time I get on that app, every single creator is talking about Tim and Brene and Devin and Akira. And at this point, I feel like an involuntary expert about this story because I know every single detail and I don't follow none of these people. But to stay on topic of what we're talking about, I think that in this particular situation, it went so viral because of just the entire way that everything unfolded. First of all, the two husbands were cousins. That's number one. Also, the two spouses who cheated, as well as the wife who got cheated on, they all went to high school together. So this is not just simply, a bunch of strangers this was a set of married people who cheated with another set of married people. This was, all of these people have known each other for years. They have grown up together almost. Like this is some really deeply rooted traumatic stuff that's happening. And that's why it's so sensational, because it goes back years to the point that the wife from the marriage who cheated and the husband from the marriage who cheated, I guess that one, keep in mind, the wife who cheated is also an identical twin. So apparently at some point in high school, her and her twin sister were messing with the husband that cheated. There's even some speculation that the twin sister's child is the cheating husband. Like it reads like it's almost like a soap opera or a telenovela. That's why it's so sensational. But I say all that to say that Akira absolutely deserves that $1.7 million that she sued for and won, because you've destroyed my home. You had, like, if you read some of the details of the case, this girl had her children calling her by her first name and referring to her as their mother. Like, you have specifically targeted me and my home and my marriage and my children, and created a situation in which most other people might have taken this to a whole different other extreme. You're lucky I'm taking you to court and suing you for $1.7 million, because I know plenty of other women who would have took you to hell if we're gonna be real about it. You would have met your maker, telling my child to call me by my first name and call you mama. You would have met your maker. Like this, it's so much that goes on with this. But yes, she absolutely deserves that $1.7 million for sure. I wish she would have got more, and it ain't over, because the husband is about to sue the cheating husband. So the wife who got cheated on just sued the mistress. What is there a male term for mistress? What is that?
It's called paramour.
It's called what?
A paramour.
Well, the paramour finna get sued too. We gonna see how much the husband get from him. Because everybody, you getting sued. I'm on Oprah. Everybody getting sued. They can get sued. You getting sued. You done messed up my whole life. Everybody deserves to get sued.
All right.
I think that's awesome.
Hey, that's gonna change the game. I tell you,
The one person that absolutely know that they married and they're supposed to be loyal to is the married couple. That's the obligations. Those are the only people that took vows. And when you step outside your vows, that's you, and you should be accountable for your actions. Everything outside of that is just on the outside. And
hey, this
remain outside.
this inadvertently could keep a lot of families and a lot of marriages together, because cats start making financial decisions versus sexual decisions. If you start thinking about your bank account versus something else, that might govern your actions, make you a little bit more loyal. If you ain't trying to give up 1.7 million or whatever for being part of tearing up a family.
North Carolina. If you're a cheater, just don't live in a state that the spouse can sue for what is it called? Alienation of affection. You better move. If you live in one of them states, you better move.
That sounds like a woman scorn law or a man scorn. Somebody was really hurt to put that law together. Like, oh,
I agree, they were.
They can't get away with this.
Listen, thank you so much for your time. I know everybody's all very busy. Thank you so much. Hey, Todd, it's been great meeting you. Don't be a stranger, man. I'm going to add you to our email list. Jump on and tell us what's going on with the watchdog and new things you're investigating. I'll be reaching out. Good to have a first conversation with you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Raven, TNT, my brother in this endeavor, Kevin, appreciate all of you. To Phil, who tried to get on, but he's on the road. Appreciate the attempt. To the audience, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We're planning to be back next week, and then we'll let you know about the holiday schedule. I'll get with Kevin and the rest of the crew and figure out if and when we'll be broadcasting. Don't forget, season 2 of the Hot Mic podcast starts in January. And in January, The only way you'll be able to watch the live stream on Facebook will be on the Hot Mic Cincy podcast page. It will no longer be on the Nathan Ivey creative page. So I want to put everything in one stream on Facebook so everybody can be together. Right now it's split. And so just keep your heads up. If you're not already a subscriber on Facebook, please find that page and subscribe to it. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk with you real soon.